What is up, everyone? Renfail here, back again with another Rogue Trader Guide, and today we're diving into Homeworlds, which are an important part of the character creation process because they give you a lot of inherent bonuses that are going to benefit your character as you progress throughout the game. Now, all of these are different. There's different pros and cons to each one of the planets, and some of them are better suited to other archetypes if you're going to go the meta route. Now, if you're someone like me who is a role player as opposed to a meta player, these aren't really going to matter in terms of the stats. It's going to be mostly about the role play background that these have for those of you who want to dive into the lore and really get into your character. But I'm going to cover both sides of things in today's video. This is a beginner's guide for new players, so if you haven't ever seen this before or if you haven't ever logged into the game and played, that's what this is for. If you've already played the game, you already know Warhammer, some of this is probably already going to be known to you. But again, my guides are for new players who, like me, are coming in for the first time and wanting to learn about this before they actually roll up a character for the first time. So let me go ahead and move my Streamlabs overhead out of the way, and we're going to dive into the various homeworlds that you can choose for your character creation process. Now, before we get going, don't forget, if this is your first time here, like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Daily streams happen at 5:30 a.m. and 8 p.m. Central. We stream a couple hours in the morning and about 3 hours at night, and we do a lot of different games above and beyond Rogue Trader, so don't forget to check out the playlists and the Discord if you want to know more. So the first one up is the Death World. Now, it sounds ominous, and from a roleplay perspective, it might be. It says here on Death Worlds, the plants, beasts, and sometimes even the environment itself take aggressive and destructive forms inimical to human life. Whilst exceptionally difficult to colonize, many Death Worlds possess valuable resources that require an outpost or other human presence upon the planet's surface to survive. These harsh environments result in some of the hardiest and most resilient populations in the galaxy. Those tested and found wanting die young. So the primary feature of this race is survival instinct. Once per combat, when the wounds of a Death World character drop below 30%, they gain 20% of their maximum wounds as temporary wounds. Now, I'm not going to dive into all of this per se because this is some of the meta of the game, and there's a whole nother guide on wounds, what those mean, and how those work. Some of the other stuff that's a little more simple to understand is that Death World characters also gain a 20% bonus to dodge and armor when they have at least one temporary wound from any source. And that is one of the prime features of being from a Death World. In terms of your characteristic mods, you get a +5 to strength, agility, and toughness, but a -5 to intelligence and fellowship. And you got to give them credits. You got to give Owlcat Games credits for creating a game that actually has pros and cons, because that's something they've taken out of Dungeons and Dragons and some of the other games out there. So I love that fact that we have that. And it says the following features are available after Origin Advancement. These are things that you can pick up along the way and can, after you advance deeper into things. Brutal Hunter, you get a 15% critical hit chance against targets with a bleeding effect or 50% or less of their wounds. Trusty Weapons, you get 10% critical hit chance for axes, hammers, and las weapons. Every injury increases your agility and willpower by 5%, and every trauma counts as 3 injuries. A lifetime of scars means you take the toughness bonus. You take toughness bonus, less damage from flame, toxic damage, and bleeding effects, and you have tenacity, where once per combat, when your character is suffering from stunned, blinded, or immobilized condition, you ignore that condition and instead gain a 20% temporary wounds to their maximum wounds. So this is a character that has a lot of inherent bonuses with the wounds system. So if you want to play that metagame, that's something that this character has to their advantage if you come from a Death World. Next up are the Voidborn, and this is kind of one of the creepier of the roleplay races, or homeworlds, I should say, in my mind. Voidborn are humans birthed in the belly of a void vessel or aboard an ancient orbital satellite. Those who have lived their lives on void ships become inured to some extent due to the reality-altering process of warp travel and to living in low or zero gravity environments. In many cases, their features are drawn and their skin pallid, and they may even have minor deformities or a strangeness to their speech, gait, or general appearance that sets them apart from others. Remember in The Expanse, the Belters, they grew up in zero-G, low G, and so when they went to Earth, it was very difficult for them to deal with that, and vice versa. I like the thought of this. Living in low G or zero G gravity environments has created this additional effect. Plus, because of the void stuff, they've got some mutations at play. The main feature here is Fortune. A Voidborn character can reroll any failed attack, dodge, parry characteristic, or skill test with a 20% chance of success. That chance cannot be greater than the base success chance of the roll. Additionally, any enemy dodge or parry against the Voidborn creature has a 20% chance to fail after a successful roll. That's a fun little perk. I would consider that a perk for those of you who like that kind of stuff. This is probably going to be one of the easier of the Homeworlds choices to choose from for new players. I would, in my mind, because of that bonus right there. But again, it's up to everybody else. You get a willpower and intelligence bonus, but a strength, it's a negative. This is a character. Voidborn are really good for adepts, in my mind, or I guess they're calling them. They're not apps; they're operatives. They've changed the terminology since beta, and I got to get used to the launch terminology. And then after Origin Advancement, you can have used talents. Bloody Mess. Anytime a Voidborn character scores a critical hit, there's a 10% chance to double the damage. Contagious Luck. You can use anytime you use a non-damaging ability on an ally, grants that ally the ability to reroll any failed attack, dodge, parry characteristic, or skill test with a 20% chance of success for 1 round. So it's the same thing that you have, but it's that contagious fortune, that contagious luck. Just a flesh wound means you have a 20% chance to survive after suffering lethal damage, surviving with 1 wound, and you also have Jinx. While you have more than 50% wounds, all chances of all creatures, including enemies in a 3-cell radius, are increased by 10%. That's a little crazy. When you have less than 50% wounds, all chances of all creatures in a 3% chance radius are decreased by 10%. And the random creatures can be kind of freaky. The first time it happens, it's going to scare the hell out of you. It's a really cool aspect of the combat in this game. Be smart. Anytime an ability or a talent uses the fellowship bonus, a void ship character can instead use the intelligence bonus if it's higher. You can always upgrade intelligence even if your archetype doesn't allow it, which is really cool. Next up is Hive World. The Hive World's population is so dense that great swaths of the surface of the world are frequently covered in gargantuan cities bejeweled with towering spires that pierce the atmosphere. Hive Worlds are vital to the welfare of the Imperium and are the beating heart of its economy and war machine. They produce munitions for the Emperor's armies in vast manufactories, mine valuable minerals, and refine fuel for the Imperial Navy. Innumerable regiments of the Astra Militarum are raised from their massive populations as well. I actually took the Hive World background for my soldier, who I'm currently playing the game through, mostly because I am playing a little bit of the meta, but I like the background as well. But I wanted the fellowship and agility bonus that they offer. And the willpower didn't really bother me because I was like, this character isn't going to be doing anything with willpower, so it's all good. Strength and numbers. Hive World characters gain a fellowship bonus resolve if there are 3 or more creatures, allies, or enemies in a 3-cell radius, but suffer a penalty if there are no creatures around. But I've always got my friends with me, so we're good to go. You also get camaraderie. You can pass willpower resistance tests using your fellowship value instead, if that value is higher. And if you have melee superiority against an enemy, the effect is increased by 10. Now that doesn't bother you if you're going to be a ranged character like I have. If an enemy has melee superiority against a Hive World character, it's decreased by 10. Melee superiority, it means that when you're surrounded by more allies than enemies, you get a 10% weapon skill bonus for each additional ally. Larger creatures need to be surrounded by more than 2 enemies to provide this advantage to the attackers. You also get to do weapon personalization, so all ranged weapons dealing physical damage have +1 damage, +5% armor penetration, +1 rate of fire, and -5 to recoil. Now I chose that. This is another reason that I went this route with the soldier, because I knew I was going to be doing ranged, and I wanted that weapon personalization. But it is for physical damage, so you have to pay attention to that. It has to be the specific ranged weapon type that does physical damage. Helping Hand. If a Hive World character starts their turn adjacent to an ally character, you get 2 movement points. And if you end your turn adjacent, they all gain movement points on the next turn. And Fresh Start, you get a 50% bonus to dodge against the first attack of opportunity every round, which is a nice little get-out-of-jail-free card if you're trying to escape a hairy situation. Forge Worlds are the domain of the Adeptus Mechanicus. These are entire planets ceded to the demands of vast macro-industries, each a manufacturing super-complex of unimaginable capacity and power. Over the millennia, different Forge Worlds have become especially renowned for their philosophies or ways of war. These are often colored by the technologies they specialize in manufacturing. The bulk of a Forge World's population is utilized as a labor force, while the fortunate few may be inducted into the ranks of the Adeptus Mechanicus itself. That's a really cool background, man. +5 intelligence and toughness, -5 fellowship. You're going to get Pinnacles of Weaponry. The first attack in combat with any plasma melta or power weapon deals additional damage equal to your intelligence bonus. This is a fun little class that you could roll for if you're going to be doing a little bit of like psyker stuff, but also with weapons. I would say Pascal, if you've seen Pascal in action, it's a good example of a character who's an operative who also does melee damage, and stuff like this is crazy for that. Fires of the Forge, they get a toughness bonus, deflection against burning effects and flame weapons. Also gain a stacking 10% bonus to hit chance and dodge reduction against any target they hit with a single target attack. Successful crit hits increase the hit chance and dodge reduction by 20% from single target attacks. Steel of the Forge, which means while you're wearing heavy armor, your character gains 1 movement point, 1 deflection, and cannot fall prone. That alone is really good for tanks. Nothing can ever knock you prone. That is pretty badass. Calculated relations. Forge World characters can use persuasion, coercion, and commerce based on intelligence instead of fellowship, which is nice. I use fellowship for mine because I have a soldier, but I could imagine having a tank, having a warrior, for example, who uses that instead. Although warriors aren't necessarily going to use intelligence unless you spec them as like a warrior psyker. The cool thing about this game is there's so many ways to spec your characters. Quick commercial break, everyone, to celebrate and give thanks to all of these amazing people who keep me on the air full time. Really appreciate the support. All you got to do is join as a member. You get access to private videos. You can also do super thanks on any upload or super chats and stickers on any live stream or premiere you see. And beyond that, don't forget we're multi-streaming over on Twitch now, so you can support over there as well. Thanks so much to everybody. Let's get back to the video at hand. Now, this is going to be the one that a lot of players are going to choose because it's like the de facto, if you're going to buy into the whole God Emperor spiel, you're going to come from an Imperial World. And there are a lot of bonuses if you come from an Imperial World. So the Imperial World, it says here, Imperial World is one of a million planets united by the belief in the immortal God Emperor. Hailing from hyper-technological societies to grimy feudal populations, the inhabitants of countless worlds offer fealty and devotion to the Master of Humanity and the Imperial Creed espoused by his servants. The designation Imperial World encompasses a vast array of wholly dissimilar worlds that are nevertheless part of the Imperium. And this is where we see all sorts of cool perks for being part of the Horde, basically. Because you're part of humanity's finest, Imperial World characters can select any characteristic except for weapon skill or ballistic and add a 10+10 bonus. Also ready to serve. When an Imperial World character is affected by an ally's non-damaging ability or affects an ally with such an ability, the resolve is increased by a bonus of fellowship bonus 2 for 1 round. And if you're under 40% wounds, Imperial World characters get a +10 bonus to all characteristics and a 2 to resolve. They also gain a 10% critical hit chance and 10% armor against Xenos or demonic creatures. And the allies gain half the bonuses. Imperial World characters' lore and lore warp are always 0, though. Against Xenos and warp, you know nothing because you're so... This is the fun part about this. This is the roleplay aspect of the meta, even. You're so rigid in your belief structure that you don't know anything about alien cultures or anything beyond what the media has told you, and so your knowledge of Xenos and warp are 0. It's like, no, I believe what the God Emperor has told me about everything. Doing my part. If no other character in the current party has the same archetype, the first use of any ability costs -1 AP less. And you're stronger together. All allies, including Xenos in the current party, gain +5 to the same characteristic as was chosen for humanity's finest. So that goes back to this one. So your bonuses, okay, so if you get +10, your allies are all going to get half of that, +5. That's a really cool perk to add to all of your friends. This is an interesting one, Fortress Worlds. These are planets where the entire populace has been immersed in warfare, constantly training for the day that they may be called upon to defend the Imperium, a charge they solemnly uphold. Fortress Worlds are established as bulwarks against an enemy, and every citizen is a soldier, trained to fight from the moment they can handle a weapon. Man, that sounds like the Spartan lifestyle right there. Never stop shooting. Every time a Fortress World character kills an enemy, they gain 10 stacks if never stop shooting. At the start of their turn, there is a chance... A stack, okay. There's a chance that the first attack this round will cost 0 action points and will not count towards the attack's limit per round. If it triggers, all the stacks are lost. Perception +5, willpower +5, fellowship -5. You're a combat addict. +7 to ballistic skill, perception, and willpower while in combat, but when you're out of combat, -7. Hail of Steel. Each round, Fortress World characters gain a stacking 1% bonus to dodge against range attacks for each shot they made during this round. Also, the burst attack gains an additional 10 stacks if never stop shooting. Familiar kickback. At the end of your turn, Forest World characters, Fortress, not Forest, gain stacks if never stop shooting equal to half the minimal damage of the most damaging ranged weapon they use this round. See, this is where I was talking about earlier. The meta in this game is super, super deep, and if you let it overwhelm you, it can. So this is just extra stuff that you don't have to pay attention to if you don't want to, but the reason I do these guides is so that you have all the information at your fingertips, so that if you're going into this and you just want to create a character and get going quickly as possible, just go for the backgrounds and don't ignore all the meta stuff. Spare magazine. The first reload in combat costs 0 AP. Reloading a weapon gains an additional 10 stacks of never stop shooting. And finally, never stop believing. When all stacks of never stop shooting should be lost, they become... Oops. WP divided by 2 number of stacks instead. Additionally, a Fortress World character may upgrade their willpower characteristic even if their current archetypes do not allow it. So there you have it, everybody. A quick overview for the beginners out there of the Homeworld selections that you can make during character creation. This is only one part of the character creation process. The origins are also super important and give you an additional sets of pros and cons. This is one of the most in-depth character creation processes I've seen in a long time, in the sense that you actually get a lot of pros and cons based on your Homeworld origin, Triumph, Darkest Hour, those types of things before you ever even get to the archetype to choose what class you're going to play. So we're going to be diving into all of those as we play throughout this game. So if you like this guide and you like my style, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Daily streams, 5:30 a.m. and 8 p.m. Central Time, multi-streaming on Twitch and YouTube. And of course, here on YouTube, we do tons of guides for this game and others. So check out all of the playlists, check out the Discord, and I will see everybody in the next video. Until then, stay safe. Happy gaming, everybody. Cheers.